Oh, let's clap it up. Non-conference play was so memorable, and here we are, conference play, the week of six rotations. So happy to have you with us. He's Mick. I'm Daniel. As always, we are brought to you by SNA Sports, better equipment for a better game. And for those that have gotten some of these awesome giveaways, also brought to you by Ren Athletics, where you can email us every Sunday night, Monday morning to get your six rotations team of the week in two outsides, two middles, one of the other starters, and we will give away one cool random object every week. It might be a quarter zip, it might look something, Mick, like this. It might be a sweet little jacket, it might be a polo, it might be a t-shirt. You never know, so you've got to email us to find out. And as always, thanks to Ren. But Mick, here we sit. The final preseason or pre-conference season poll of the year, taking a look into this conference slate. And once again, Mick, we've got records. The largest indoor attendance record has been broken. Over 17,600 fans squeezed into the CHI Health Center on Tuesday night. And Mick, they were not disappointed. Nebraska and Creighton played a dandy. There were over 380,000 people watching on FS1, which is the most watched women's college volleyball broadcast in the history of FS1. And Mick, Nebraska, Virginia Adriano, new names popping up, and they survive in five. What an awesome match after the Jays took the fourth in extra points. I know we got a reverse 6 days ago, but what a match that was to kick off the week.
Yeah, I just think we're real spoiled. We have had 4 weeks of like Final Four volleyball,
Yeah.
and maybe not at the highest level of play because of the errors, but think about it, in the last 4 weeks of the season now, we'll get these same kinds of matches with hopefully a few more reduced errors, a higher level of play. I mean, holy cow, this is going to be one of the most exciting years ever.
Yeah, Nebraska finished it on a 5-1 run. It was 12-8 to 14-8. Rebecca Alec finished it off for the Huskers to continue their undefeated start, a 10-0 non-conference slate for Nebraska. I'm going to go ahead and dispel any worries. They're number one. And with that, we can take a look at our top 10 as Nebraska and Texas lead the way. But Mick, Pittsburgh, they are on the rise. Just number five, but two huge matches this week against SMU as the Panthers took down Penn State in four sets. Pitt, they started their year 0-2. They've now won eight in a row, four of them over top 15 teams. And yes, Wednesday and Sunday, we will see Pitt and SMU. Meanwhile, Texas in that two spot, they swept TCU on Tuesday, or excuse me, Wednesday as well. That was a loaded doubleheader that saw Pitt hit, I don't know, 350. Texas hit 415, and then Wisconsin swept Marquette, hitting 487. So the offenses were out and shining as we see Wisconsin in our top 10 in that seven spot. Mick, how about Kentucky Louisville Thursday night? Another dandy. 15-7. Kentucky roasted Louisville in the fourth set, 25-12. Brooklyn delay with 30 points. So there we have it. I think I threw out the teams that I think are the real contenders right now. Nebraska, Texas, Kentucky are the one, two, three. And then you throw Pitt in that five spot. Who else really jumped off the page to you last week?
Well, I tell you what, I have them differently, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But I actually have Texas moving to number one right now, uh, and for a couple of reasons. But I like what Nebraska is doing, and I like that they're trying to get their middles involved. All the teams that can win the national championship are really working to get their middles involved. This hasn't happened for the last 10 or 15 years. This is going to be exciting. I have number three, Pitt. I have number four, Stanford, and I could get Stanford to number three. I'll tell you right now, both of Stanford's middles are coming on. Not only the freshman, but the sophomore, Andrews, had wonderful weeks this week. So now Stanford's always been an opposite, two left sides, score all the points. With the middle scoring, they now stretch you out. Now, Elia, the left side for Stanford and Kurt both can score and hurt you because middles cannot just double down on them. And so I think Stanford's better than people think. Well, we'll see when they play Pittsburgh. We'll see how that works out. And to tell you the truth, I really have Kentucky at 5, and only because I feel like they don't have three outside hitters to go with the middles, and maybe one middle's not quite as good yet. But the reason I like all 5 of those teams is all of them have a chance to get better. And that's exciting. And then that gets me to number 6. And I throw TCU in there at number 6. And I know a lot of people won't like that. I think you could have Arizona State being close to number 6 now that they're opposites back. I think that's interesting. Wisconsin, I have at 8, only because I think Mimi Collier is really stepping it up, reducing her errors. And she is the key for Wisconsin because she has to show up every night. Now, all of these 8 teams have players they count on to show up every night. TCU, though, is a little bit different. They have somebody different show up every night, which is scary if you start thinking about that, because if they all show up on one night, they can beat
That's when they
anybody.
take down A&M. Yeah, I
That's
mean that's
exactly right.
yep. Yep,
So,
it's been great volleyball, Mick, and I'm going to jump in a couple times. Elia
no, you
Rubin
go.
out on the left over for Stanford. You're talking about Jordan Harvey also had a huge match in the sweep over Hawaii. Stanford, a team I'm still waiting to really prove themselves. But Mick, we're going to talk about it later, I'm sure of it. But I want to give a shout out off the top because you talk about Kentucky's weapons. What Eva Hudson did, she had 17 kills, 20 digs against Louisville. What the Purdue transfer did against Washington. Kentucky was down late in sets 1 and 2 against Washington. I found this from Avid Volley on Twitter, who is one of the diehard contributors to women's volleyball on social media. She's fantastic. What Eva Hudson did, according to NCAA stats, has only been done once ever in the last 10 years, and that is 28 kills in a 3-set match against a power 4 or 5 team. You got to give some credit. She's worthy of her and Brooklyn DeLay are some decent monsters out there.
I'll throw out one name, T. Williams from 1988 in the Final Four. You Texas versus Hawaii. T. Williams got 30 kills in a
In a three
three-set
set.
match.
Well,
Yeah.
the other one was Jalen Hodge in 2024. So those are
Ah,
the last
nice.
2 to do it in the last 10 years in a 3-set match. But you're right. I think that they're waiting for that third option. They need some more help from the middle, talking about Kentucky.
What
Meanwhile,
they've
Mick,
been on the right has to kick it up. Yeah.
yes. And you know what? Kentucky is not going to have the toughest conference season, objectively. Now, the SEC, maybe the tides will rise. They'll be tested with Georgia on Friday, who just upset Georgia Tech, bumped them out of the top 25. But Mick, I think people start to like it when we show them all. So let's go ahead. Let's look at the top 25, all of it. I don't want to delay. We're known to maybe go on a bit of a rant or two. I don't know. Crazy, right? But the
Sure,
rest
why
of our
not?
top 25 and the biggest movements, very minimal. The jump for the Miami Hurricanes, they have only lost one. They take on Georgia Tech Friday, who they just replaced in the top 25. This should be a big weekend for the whole ACC just to kick it off because you got Pitt and SMU. SMU there at 11. BYU sits undefeated, still waiting for the true test to come. But here's a couple of the big matches this week. We start on Wednesday with Missouri, Texas A&M on ESPN2, and then Pitt SMU at 8, Vanderbilt, Texas at 9. Friday, Texas takes on Missouri. And then Arizona State, Kansas should be really fun on ESPNU. USC and UCLA will travel to Happy Valley this weekend. Friday, USC, Penn State. Sunday, UCLA, Penn State. And then Mick, TCU, Baylor on Saturday. That's right up your alley.
Oh yeah, TCU Baylor. That's head coach versus assistant coach. And when Baylor plays SMU, same situation with Sam Erger up there, Jason Williams at TCU going after Baylor. I'm not sure that Baylor has beaten TCU since Jason left and went to TCU. Now I don't know that for a fact, but I think TCU has bragging rights right now, and
Yeah.
and I know Baylor wants back into that situation. So those are great matches to watch. Another match, I want to point out something. We need to find out if Texas A&M's for real. So this weekend when they play, I think Missouri.
Wednesday on
Wednesday, when they
ESPN2
play
against
Missouri,
Missouri.
that's a
Yep.
match to watch because Missouri's coming on. Texas A&M lost to both SMU and TCU and their swing up in North Texas last week. So now we got to find out if they can come back, and Lednicky's got to show up. That's the deal for A&M.
I did look. TCU and Baylor split last season, so
Aha,
that's the
okay.
situation there. Meanwhile, we've got a Monday night match. So for anyone that's watching, sometimes we leak this out on Monday afternoon. Louisville, Western Kentucky tonight at 6:30, Mick. That's a great way to finish non-con play.
Yeah, and I got to switch back and forth between the Lions and Baltimore and that match. So I'm back and forth. I'm going to do my split screen since you taught me how to do Apple split screen. I'm going to try to get the Lions and Baltimore on one side of the screen, and I'm going to watch Louisville and Western Kentucky on the other side. Should be a great night.
All right, Mick. So let's keep on moving down to the bottom section. We talked about Missouri. They've got two big matches coming up after a tough kind of end to non-con play. Texas, Missouri, Mick. We've got a question from a fan, and it starts with Cheese Trader, one of our friends of the podcast, also provides good content and knowledge on social media. He wants to know if the Texas block is starting to wave any red flags for you. They're only getting about 2.3 blocks per set, giving up 2.6. So do you feel like getting outblocked and keeping that under 2.5? Is that a worry moving forward?
I think the Texas block is actually getting better. I see the teams trying to use on the top of the Texas block more, but Texas has also moved freshman middle blocker Hardy, I believe is her name, from Utah,
Yeah.
into the middle blocking position. So they have a new blocker, and I think they're rotating three middle blockers around to prepare for a potential injury down the road. I also think that when the block is right, that's why Texas wins, is because their block is so good. So they may not be getting the block stuffs, but they're controlling where the other team hits the ball, and their defense is so good to pick up all the tips and the jams and those kinds of things
Yeah.
that you actually want to look at how they're doing out of system, because that also tells you how good the block is because that allows the defense in the backcourt to play more balls, and your transition game on your swing is what you want to look at.
All right, so we talked Texas. Now let's talk a little Nebraska. Nebraska swept Arizona over the weekend to finish off a 10-0 non-conference season. They'll take on Michigan and Maryland. So barring any crazy upsets, we'll talk about them in the same capacity next week. But Mick, this is what Danny Busboom Kelly had to say on the areas that Nebraska could improve on. Quote, I thought our defense tonight was pretty lackluster. So that's going to be a big focus of this week. We've got to be better defensively. And that's from Lincoln Arniel out in Lincoln or in Omaha. And so, Mick, when you hear that and you watch Nebraska play, especially on Tuesday against Creighton, where do you feel like they can improve in those defensive areas?
Well, I think they've made the switch of the liberos. I think the younger libero is starting. I think Toboy is now the defensive specialist.
Yeah. Mouth.
But it just you don't think of Nebraska as not playing good defense. So if she's pushing them on defense, she really wants to pick up all these loose balls and dig more balls in the middle back. I think she's looking in the middle back. Now, I thought Murray was really good in the middle back. I thought she's been playing real well. So you have to start saying, is she talking about the right backs, the setter, and the opposite, or is she talking about the defensive specialist? So it'll be interesting to see, or maybe she's talking about the defense at the net in conjunction with that. But I think Nebraska is working on their middle offense, and I think that's where you're going to see the most improvement.
Okay, meanwhile, as we kind of trudge our way through what was an exhilarating weekend, you talk about that Kentucky win over Louisville. I know you haven't been too high on Louisville, so we'll kind of keep the jury out to see if the Cardinals are legit, if that win from Kentucky was, something that can kind of carry through the season. But Mick, how about some of these teams in the 20s? Because they really shined this week. We saw Kansas State come in and upset North Carolina in 5. We saw Georgia upset Georgia Tech in 5. Penn State survived Princeton in 5. There was Utah surviving St. Mary's in 5. And I think there was one more that I
Kansas lost. Yeah.
Well, Kansas swept by Creighton, but I meant the five setters. We saw a couple go the way of these ranked teams and a couple, in the case of North Carolina and Georgia Tech, kind of go against them. So when you're watching these five setters, and especially as we start conference play, what do you think separates the teams that can pull it out and then a team like North Carolina that just, they've lost 2 weeks in a row now to unranked teams in five sets? Do they not have that clutch factor at the end? Is that what tells you about a team?
Or they're tired. Or they're tired. A lot of teams that are just new getting into the poll do well the first couple of weeks, 3 weeks, but there's a lot of travel. There's a lot of things. Schools now getting in. You get into the October, you get the first round of tests. This tells you if the teams are really strong and can weather all this stuff and still maintain and play consistently every night, or if they're going to be up and down. I like the teams up to 20. After 20, I'm waiting for people to get better and get their lineups solidified. I have Missouri at 12 in my poll, and the coaches have Missouri at 22. And I tell you, I think that's an upcoming team. So, and I think Baylor's better than 20. I saw them play the other night. They're athletic. They just made too many errors. And the coach Ryan will get them straightened out, and they will be performing right with that group of TCU, SMU, A&M, that group right there. In the middle, and I watched USC play the other night. What bothers me about USC is they're a good team, but they seem to only play hard enough to beat the team they're playing. They don't seem like they're after a level of play that's superior and challenge somebody else to beat them at that level of play. And I think that if they pursue that and start to get better, where they raise their level of play and don't just compete against the team every night, but compete with the ball to try to raise their level of play consistently, they can get in that top 16. The one I don't understand is UCLA. They seem to be play one good set and then they lose control of the rest of the match. And that's going to be interesting to see if they can stay in the top 25 because right now UCLA probably is not playing at a level to be in the top 25.
Well, I'm also really excited to see our volleyball magazine media poll that we did last year, top 16. Unfortunately, it's not out while we're recording, so you guys can go ahead and check it out on social media. I'm sure, our account will retweet it, different accounts as well. But just to get a vibe of where you and me and Emily and Lee and different people that are involved in the volleyball world putting are going to put some of these teams, like I can tell you right now, on my top 25. I agree. I think Kentucky deserves that three spot. I've got Stanford at four and Pitt at five. I still want to see TCU do it in conference play. There's something about a team that gets up in non-con, but show me that you can get through the grind of the Big 12. I've got TCU and Arizona State kind of locked together at 8 and 9, and A&M at 11. So the Big 12 really impressive, and a team that we're not talking a ton about, Purdue. I put them in the 12 spot. Now the coaches have Purdue in that 10 spot. They're 9 and 1, but Mick, as we know, the 10-week war starts this weekend. And that's something Dave Shondell kind of enlightened me about, where it's, hey, we've got 3 seasons. We are now in the war part of the season. The preseason's different. Now we're in war, and then the postseason's different. So I'm curious to see how Purdue gets through a very top heavy Big Ten. Because, Mick, as you see, when you lose to an Ohio State or a Michigan State, it's going to be hard to come back from that in the eyes of the public, usually.
Yeah, if Purdue loses to either of those teams,
That's
then
what I
they
mean.
should
Yeah.
they should not lose to either of those teams, and they have to have somebody come forward along with Woolard. She is doing great. She's been at 20 kills here and really leading the offense, but they need at least one more scorer to get them up there in that top five of the Big Ten or top four. But I had Purdue at 10 also. I think their play recently has forced me to give them credit for the way that they've been playing. But you're right. Now, the second part of the season is the Big Ten Wars. That's a little bit different. That's a grinding kind of play. So
Yeah.
we'll see how they hold up with the travel and every night having to go in there. But I think Dave Shondell has shown me something that he can lose those two top players. those point scorers and come back and put a team together that can be in the top 10 or top 15 the very next year, that's a heck of a job.
Meanwhile, I want to give a shout out to Marquette because they have been dogged on this pod. They are not having a great year, but they came out and they swept Florida. They defeated their former coach in Ryan Tice, which is a very impressive win. There's no doubt about it. And then Florida comes back and plays a whale of a match in the Kohl Center. Wisconsin and Florida, they always play classics. Mick, let me walk you through what happened on Sunday if you missed it. Florida had 7 set points to force a fifth set, but instead it was the 5 match points that Wisconsin had. Mimi Collier had 5 kills, all in extra points, finished with 27. At 32-31, Florida had a free ball off their serve, but Jayla August decided to tip. Kristen Simon made a great play. Triple block saves Bucky Badger. I feel like we're seeing it again with Wisconsin. They've got all the pieces on the paper. I just don't know if I'm watching a team that can make it to the Final Four when I watch them play.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a tough order. Their block's not quite as good as those top 5 or 6 teams. That's one thing he's got to produce. He's got Collier though playing at a low error percentage.
Yeah.
That gives him time to develop his defense a little bit more, work on that tough serve by everybody, and get 1 or 2 more point scores, which he got this weekend. He got several of the other players scoring pretty well. Now, if they can be consistent, and we can count on that then Wisconsin can get back in the hunt, but it's going to be tough.
Meanwhile, some tough news from Minnesota, who sits in that 12 spot. They are 10-1 and battling adversity left and right, but Mick, they just lost their third starter for the year. They lost Wooker, they lost their libero that I can't pronounce, and now their junior middle Kalissa Minati, who's hitting 430. She is now out for the year. How many injuries until Keegan is just like, are you kidding me? We've got to hit that point, right?
Well, and hands down, they are competing every night, no matter who's in there, and that's what he likes the most. But he's building a base for this program. Since he's gotten there, he hasn't been able to get his base where he wants it, so that the Minnesota team comes out and plays the same every night and has their star players to be able to perform. So he's getting play time for some people that will really help him next year also and will establish the fighting power of his team and a little moxie when they get everybody healthy again. Meanwhile, they're getting superior help by the outside hitter that constantly is getting every ball and just hitting off the hands and into the court and that sort of thing. I like Minnesota's effort. I don't think they're going to make the top 16 for me once things get going, but let's see how they do in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I mean, they turned around and they went to Marquette and they swept them after Marquette swept Florida. And so that was an impressive win. And, they'll start conference play with a bit of an easy opening with Michigan State and Rutgers and Michigan and Northwestern. So don't be surprised if you turn around and Minnesota's 4-0 in conference play and they're doing things. And you talk about Hanson on the left side, and they got that transfer from Purdue, Lourdes Myers, who has taken a lot of swings in the front row as well. But last thing I want to talk about here, Mick, before we get into our team of the week, we have a question from Dash. He emailed in. You can go ahead and email us at sixrotations@gmail.com. He wants to know, how late is too late in your eyes to use a timeout? He feels like there's a lot of coaches calling timeouts when they're down to set point, but he wants to know if it's more efficient to take a timeout when it's 20-18 or 20-17 as opposed to 24-22 or something like that.
Well, there's probably 2 schools on that, but if you've been watching, it seems like taking a timeout with 1 point left to go doesn't really afford you anything. But time and again, you see the other team come out and serve in the net or serve out of bounds.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I never like to take a timeout with just 1 point left unless I wanted to set up my defense and set up my serving so that I knew what I was trying to do. If I was receiving, not so much. I wanted to keep the flow of the game going, but I see coaches doing both. And so I think you use timeouts either to control momentum or to make changes and get things where you need to have them and let the players play.
Yeah, good mindset. All right, Mick, let's go ahead and jump into our six rotations team of the week. This has been really fun so far because it really lets me do a deeper dive into which players shined the brightest. And I've been trying to scatter in a few new names, but sometimes you just got to go to the well. And you used her last week. This is my first time using her this season. 30 points, a 340 hitting efficiency. Mimi Collier against the Gators was incredible, and she's one of two Badgers that make my team today, my first outside hitter.
I think you can make a good case for Collier on the outside, but I didn't put her in there. I put Wolford Woolard
Yep,
for
Purdue.
Purdue. She had 86 swings, 45 kills with only 10 errors, and simply because I think her consistency has allowed Purdue to stay up there and do so well with all these new players. So that was one I picked for outside.
Who's your second outside?
Stafford from Texas. She did a magnificent job. 86 swings, 40 kills, 10. I'm sorry, that's not true. She had 50 swings, 25 kills with only five errors. But what I liked that she did is her blocking and her middle back defense was superior. And so she's becoming an all-around player. And what I like about Texas overall right now is all the players seem to be getting better. And that's an interesting thing to watch. You watch teams to see if the players are actually improving. Besides the team getting better, you watch the players, and Stafford is actually better right now. And I think that's a tribute to the coaching staff there at Texas right now. So I picked Stafford this week, 50% kill, only five errors.
I've got Evo Hudson.
I
30,
can make a case
45,
for
yeah,
that too.
45 kills in the
Absolutely.
two matches. The 20 digs against Louisville, I was watching and it's just clear. It's clear that she's one of those studs in the back row. And then once I saw that stat, she's one of two players in the last 10 years to have 28 or more kills in three sets. My honorable mention, though, is Shaylee Myers with Kansas State. She's hitting, excuse me, she has 5 kills per set this season. In the win over North Carolina, she hit 430 with 27 kills and just four errors on 54 swings. So I wanted to give her a little bit of love there.
Yeah,
And into
good
the
shout out there.
into the middle we go, where Carter Booth had a perfect night against Marquette in the win on Wednesday, and then 9 blocks against Florida on Sunday for Wisconsin, including one of the match winners in the fourth set.
One of the players that Wisconsin needs to step up if they are going to make a run at this year's title. Booth has to become a dominating middle, not only with her hitting, but with her blocking. 9 blocks is great. I did not have her, but I did have Andrews from Stanford. Just both middles of Stanford are coming on, but Andrews had a week, 33 swings, 22 kills, two errors in
Wow.
33 swings. Now, if Stanford can get both middles going to go with their outsides, that's why I put them up higher in the poll because I believe they're on the way to doing pretty good things here. They're showing improvement in their middle blocking.
Well, you know what's funny? You know when two actors from the same show they cancel each other out in the voting of an Emmys? I wanted to give Jordan Harvey because she only had 2 errors and 17 kills for
Yeah.
Stanford this week. But instead, I'm going to SMU, where Natalia Newsom also only had 2 errors, 20 kills, 10 blocks. So a little bit of an edge over the Cardinal middle blockers there. So I've got Newsom on the right side. I went back to the well here, Mick, because Olivia Babcock doesn't get enough love because she's so good. And so she's got 20 points every game, it feels like. Had 13 digs as well against Penn State. She's my opposite.
I liked Babcock too, but I went with Kari Spears.
Yeah.
45 swings, 28 kills, one error in that whole two matches. Those were two excellent matches. Spears was coming on best I've ever seen out of a freshman. She really, really brought it this weekend.
All right. What do you got for the setter?
I went with Swindle from Texas. I'll tell you what, she is showing improvement. And that's one of the big things that I looked at. Swindle has been a question mark by a lot of people. And she started out a little shaky, I think, just confidence-wise. But she is getting some good coaching from Ben Josephson. And I believe her confidence level is just going straight off the chart. And she made some sets that were very difficult, that were accurate. And she was consistent in both of these hard matches this weekend. Alice Swindle, I think, is my setter choice. However, I still like that setter a lot. I watched her last night, and she is really good too. So I like Swindle right now for this week.
I've got Ava LeGrand for Kansas State. Another name that I feel like I want to, open the minds to a couple people. K-State obviously had that win over UNC. She had 45 assists, a couple points, 6 points. But I went and looked, averaging over 10 assists per set. I want to give a little love to Ava LeGrand over there. And then over in Lexington, Molly Tuozo, the bro of the week for me. 18 and 16 digs in the two wins for Kentucky. Obviously, that big five setter against Louisville. She seemed to be everywhere.
And Danny Busboom's trying to improve the defense, but I liked Olivia Mock at Nebraska. I think she's coming on. She's getting better, and I don't think there's a competition between her and Choboy right now. I think she's got the spot. She's going, and Choboy's really dialing into her role. So I think Nebraska's defense is going to be shored up here shortly.
All right, there you go. Go ahead and send us your thing. Sarah is the winner this week with four of the same as us total. We give you a lot of options. You just have to try to match up with Mick or my team and see how you can do. Sunday nights, Monday mornings, email it to us. Spell out 6rotations@gmail.com. All right, Mick, we've got conference play. I'm excited for it. Top matchups starting Wednesday night. Should be a great week of college women's volleyball. He's Mick. I'm Daniel, and this is Six Rotations.